You are listening to the Boss Experience Podcast, a podcast with conversations about business growth, self-development, and maintaining a mindset to achieve business success. My name is Michelle Davis, and I am a business strategist and coach, and I am your host. Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of the Boss Experience, the podcast that helps you turn your expertise into an online business that replaces your 9-to-5 income. My name is Michelle Davis, and I'm your host. And I'm here today with Julia Kushnir. She's in the real estate industry on both selling, buying, investing, and also appraisals. So she happens to also be my real estate agent. So I'm very happy with my recent purchase, and that's all because of Julia. And so her region is the Hudson Valley. And yeah, she's here today as a special guest to discuss a very important topic. That topic is entrepreneurship really for you? You know, we hear all this chatter that everyone needs to have a business and people are frowning upon 9-to-5s. And so people feel a little bit of pressure of all ages. People feel pressure to be a part of this business culture, be a part of the entrepreneurship culture. And we have our dreams, dreams of being a part of that culture, creating our own income and, breaking those generational curses, so to speak, when it comes down to having wealth and being financially comfortable. And so I want to dive into those issues with Julia because Julia has been an entrepreneur for quite some time. She'll share her background with you. But, the one thing that we have to think when we think about entrepreneurship is that it's not easy. And so many people hop into it and think it's going to be easy, but it's not. There's a lot that goes into being an entrepreneur. And I think Julia is the perfect person to share, her journey and to share, that entrepreneurship isn't easy. And to really talk about what it means to have a dream of being an entrepreneur, because really what it is you have a dream of something deeper. You just have to dive into what that deeper something is. And so that's what we're going to dive into and talk about today. Are you trying to turn your expertise into an online coaching business that replaces your 9-to-5 income? If so, tell me if this sounds familiar. You took a coaching certification class but still don't know how to develop a coaching business or get clients. You bought a course only to never implement what you learned, or worse, you still don't know where to start. Or maybe you're struggling to piece together a bunch of free information you find online, hoping and praying for results, only to still be confused. The key to earning revenue in your online coaching business is having a process to get the right people contacting you about enrolling in your programs and services. You also need a coaching offer that gets results for your clients in addition to you being able to charge a premium price for your services. So if you need help putting these pieces together, my name is Michelle Davis, and I am the host of the Boss Experience podcast, in addition to being a phenomenal business coach. And I created a free short video explaining where to begin when it comes to starting an online coaching business that replaces your 9-to-5 income. Just go to CEOBlueprintacademy.com to get instant access now. That's CEOBlueprintacademy.com. Okay, back to the show. Hey, Julia. How are you?
Good. So good to talk to you, Michelle. And thank you, everyone, for listening. So I am Julia Kushnir. I am a realtor in New York and New Jersey. I'm a real estate broker in New York and agent in New Jersey. I also work for an appraisal company. We're doing real estate valuation in the tri-state area, mostly New York and New Jersey. And I sort of was forced, I guess, into entrepreneurship, going there full time with the birth of my daughter. Although I'll tell you, my entrepreneurship, I guess, spirit comes from my mom, because when I was 15 years old, we lived in Russia and things were not stable there economically back at that time, like 94, 95. My dad was a military man and he was supposed to have very stable compensation package, but his salary was delayed for like sometime 9 months or even longer. So me and my mom were forced into entrepreneurship as far as figuring out what is the need, what people could need. And at that time, she was selling Mary Kay cosmetics and Oriflame cosmetics. So I joined her in. I've been selling it actually in school to my fellow students, to teachers. Back then, I attended School of Economics and English. And at some point, actually, my teacher, our head teacher, so he saw a magazine going around during the class. And then he said, whose magazine is that? And then I stood up and he told me, well, all you can do is just put all these ideas, like just looking at magazines and you're not listening. And I was like, oh no, I am listening. So this is the catalog to purchase that can make profit. And I have my business plan. And I think he was shocked at the time. He's like, oh, okay. So I didn't know. And then, it was sort of confusing and interesting experience for both of us because he thought it was just like magazine about nothing, maybe boys or whatnot, or just like some models or some advice how to make your skin look better, which it was, but it was also a business, like a beginning of it. I've been also teaching some students in my class and some friends of my parents English because it was always my strong side, and I charged like a little bit to tutor. So that was another way how I was making money. And then when I was a student, I also worked as a tour guide. So I always liked working with people and always like having my own money. So always was looking for ways like, so what do people need? What can I offer? What services I can offer that I can always have my own pocket money. I don't have to ask my parents for it. And that's pretty much how it started. So when I came to US though, I did have full-time jobs for probably about 10 years until I decided with my husband to open our own coffee shop. I think at that time I just maybe was ready to quit 9 to 5. So I had my house that I purchased. Actually, I purchased two houses at the time. It was multifamily. And the reason why I went for multifamily, it was always like that I'm not a slave of a mortgage and I have funds saved and money to travel or help my family. So what else? Of course, it's much nicer to live in a single family home and you don't have any interruption and it's more enjoyable. But I feel from practical point of view, that was my cushion, my net, how I can start something and try myself as an entrepreneur. I realized that coffee shop experience is like throwing a party every single day. And probably after 6 months or so, well, back at that time, I was pregnant and my dad passed away. So it was like too many things came into that, part of growing a business and then dealing with personal issues, family health, death in the family. So we just decided that it's not exactly for us, just because, again, it's just very, very time consuming. And I wanted to have a business with more consultation approach and more flexibility in the schedule. So I don't have to be in a coffee shop, say at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m., or I don't have to worry as much about employee being there on time, watching them in the camera. So like you said, Michelle, so it's definitely not easy, even if you hire somebody else. So because no one will treat your business like you do. So we are motivated. We will show up a lot more business owners than someone who works for us. It's just the way it is. Even now, when I have an assistant, technically she's supposed to start at 10 a.m. from 10 to 2. But, she will sometimes join at 12 o'clock or later, or she's a student and there will be always some kind of excuse. But I also understand about limitations of people and then budget, and it still works for me, I guess. Her contribution that she brings in my business, that I sort of let it go and let her catch up with hours later. But going back to how I got into real estate, I think that was the time when I gave birth to my daughter, and I just knew that I don't want to go back to 9 to 5 because it will not work. That concept of bringing a 6 months old baby to a daycare to people who I do not know, I wanted to have something more flexible. And that's how I ended up getting my license. Actually, I had my license by then when I became a mom. So I already had the license and I did a couple of transactions and I started growing it full time. I also worked with CPA preparing tax returns. So all of these things I could do remotely while spending time with her. And then sometimes I would bring her an appointment too. Like if I had to, if I didn't have anyone to leave her with, I would say, this is my assistant. And, people people would smile like 6 months old, but and slowly we grew into that. And of course, understanding how to grow it and how to make sense out of expenses and produce income and how many transactions you need to do per year. Actually, I felt joining Kelly Williams was very helpful in that respect, even though I was already a seasoned realtor, but Kelly Williams has a very good training for new agents to treat this as a business. So having that plan in mind. So yes, so if I want to make, say, $100,000 per year, then how many transactions do I need to do in a year? And then how many sellers and buyers do I need to have at a given time every month, or say every 2 weeks, or how many listing appointments I need to go to, or buyer's appointments in order to make it happen. So definitely it helps to break it down in a step-by-step plan, because initially it can seem overwhelming, but it's definitely doable. And then sky becomes limit because you get to know deals in the area. You come across deals, maybe buying something below market value, and that's the opportunity also to grow and say become a landlord. That's how I became a landlord. And many people will not want to be landlords because it definitely comes with headaches. However, I feel in life there is no pain, no gain. So sometimes we have to go through that. And I'm just hoping that maybe in 20 years, when all the mortgages will be paid and I can sell these properties, I will be able to comfortably retire and not having to worry about how I'm going to afford anything. Like, so whether it's traveling, and of course it's frugal lifestyle too, and not buying things that we don't need. But for me, my big why is actually my family. So it's not necessarily a big house, like $5 million house or with a pool, or I don't need to have any of that, but I do need to have a cushion so that I can help my family back home. My mom, my brother, he actually was diagnosed with cancer last year. He was only 35. And that was definitely helpful to have this fund saved and be able to help them at that difficult time. And of course, having funds to send my daughter to college or start saving and having that in mind, that, all these things. So this probably will be my big why, as far as like why I started the business and why I wanted to be self-employed or run a business. And I think I grew tired of just 9 to 5 and having a boss. Like to be my own boss. I like to set my own schedule. And of course it comes with pluses. Yes, it's a freedom. You don't have to go anywhere. Like, you don't have to get up. If you don't want to get up in the morning, you don't have to. But what I noticed, that when you have your own business, you tend to work more. You tend to work like often 7 days a week. Again, you don't have to, you can regulate, but you can also adjust the hours. For instance, it doesn't have to be 9 to 5. Maybe you have other things to do. So if I took my daughter to a lake, or decided to spend time with friends, or take time off like I did in last month in August, you still have to make up for this time and work. So maybe it will be 5 to 9 that you will work, or maybe you will work from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., whatever it is. But flexibility is probably something I value the most in that way. Once you set your goals as far as financial plans, okay, so this is how much I need to make, and you just keep pushing, it just comes automatically. And I feel like in my case, I just love what I do. I love helping people finding their homes or investments, and I like to learn more because there are always so many things, even though, I've been doing it, of course, for like 14 years plus, but there's always new things to learn. Now everyone is talking about artificial intelligence and how it can help our business. So, and of course, the regulations might change and laws, and when it comes to environmental laws or fair housing and in real estate and many, many other things. So it's important to stay updated. Definitely not have this attitude like I know it all, because there always, every single day, there's so many things you can learn. And I feel with the right attitude and a plan in mind, it definitely is a possibility. But I feel having a passion for what you do is probably number one requirement when you want to be self-employed and open your own business. Because if you don't like what you do, you're just not going to come along. So it will always feel like a lot of work.
Yeah, there's a few things I want to highlight that you said. So you started off as like a classically side hustles. So I think that's how a lot of people start. But the thing that I want to make note of is your why wasn't to make money. Yeah, we want to make money. And yes, money is, we're going to support ourselves, but that wasn't your driving force. And we're a lot alike in that sense because, my driving force for getting into entrepreneurship was being there for my daughter, having flexibility, not slaving away 50 hours a week for someone else. When we talk about the entrepreneurial dream, if we spend any time online, we could easily be misled thinking that all there is to that is a Lamborghini and all of that. And I love that you said that that wasn't it for you. And it wasn't it for me either. I didn't get into entrepreneurship because my first thought was money. Like you said, I wanted flexibility. I wanted to do things on my own terms and not miss out on her life. Life is short. So I love that, how you started off at 15, and Mary Kay, and, you moved on into owning your own coffee shop and really defining what it is that you wanted to do. And so what do you think were the key factors or the key things that you had to do to make sure you were going to be successful when we talk about, this dream? Did you wake up one morning and say, I want to be an entrepreneur? Or did you wake up one morning and say, you know what, I miss my daughter's XYZ. I need to figure something else out?
As I was opening that coffee shop, I just knew that I wanted to try something different because yes, life is too short. And in a way, timing, when you're young, you still have energy to do things. You have a drive. I feel having a drive is probably very, very important in my opinion, because that force that will keep you up at night in a way like, okay, so what do you want to do? What's the next step? So once I'm up in the morning, what's the plan? Or having that plan prepared for every day. And when I work with people, because at Kelly Williams, we also have the mentorship program, and sometimes I mentor, and we help people actually to start in real estate with getting their license and growing their business. What I've noticed is that some people just have the drive and some don't. And this is something it's hard to teach. And it goes back to why. So if someone's why is strong enough, they will have that drive and they will listen, they will absorb all this training, they will implement it in real life, and they will grow. Somebody will grow a little slower, someone a little faster. But someone who just may be coming from a 9 to 5 environment and expects the paycheck every Friday and it's not happening, they may get frustrated. And I guess it goes back to, again, what we just discussed. It's the why. When it's about money, it seems not to work, in my opinion. So, because, I mean, yeah, when you have a little more, a little less, but you're still okay. But if your why is to be with the family or have flexible schedule, or maybe put your kids through college and making sure that you have enough, or having maybe that lifestyle. For someone, it's the lifestyle, and someone wants to have that Lamborghini, and that's okay, but they just have to want it like bad enough to come up with that plan and have that drive, internal drive, like willingness to work, make these phone calls, go on appointments without any expectation. Because when we meet with clients, often we can't really expect any payment at that time. And there's an expectation that at some point it will lead to fruitful closing and transaction, but often it doesn't, it may not. And we should be okay with that. And having that reasoning behind it, that it's not only about the money. So it definitely helps to succeed and move forward and not lose that drive, no matter how hard it can get on a way.
Yeah, there's two things that you mentioned. You mentioned people understanding the math part of entrepreneurship. They don't set goals. And if you don't have a goal, you don't know what your target is. You don't know what you're working toward. And so, of course, the disappointment sets in because you've never established a goal. So you don't know what it's going to take for you to reach that goal. So you mentioned that you know exactly what activities you need to do that month to actually reach that goal. And, that is super important when we think about, what is our budget? What do we need to live and what do we need to even go beyond that? And we need to really, really do the math. And that's one of the things I work with my clients on, really understanding what does it take for them to actually quit their 9 to 5. Because if you're just, we don't want to just meet the 9 to 5. We want to look at, what are your bills like? What is your dream life? People don't even know what they're working toward. And so it's super important to really have those numbers actually figured out when we're thinking about what we need to actually leave a 9 to 5 or actually have the freedom. And I also love that you said that, like, the whole freedom piece, and you talked about like, your Keller Williams, which is where you're working and that you run your transactions through. I love that, they have a training component because people come in and they don't have that drive or maybe they need to tap into that drive. Maybe they know what they want to do, but they don't have the plan. They don't have the plan to get there. So that's super important. So what did it take for you to actually leave your 9 to 5? When you were working the 9 to 5, and what industry was that in? And, this was before the coffee shop.
Right. Yes. I worked actually for a construction company. So it was a general contractor since I have a degree in construction management. So actually I did work in the field for 5+ years. And it was time intensive because one company I would start work at 7 a.m. So which means I had to get up at 5:45 to get done time. And another company was like 8 to 5. And then at some point, you just maybe just got bored, because you got to know the job and you got to know all the activities. And then you just feel you need to try something new. But then, of course, am I prepared to do that? And when it comes to the math, in that case, I lived in a 3-family house. So my housing expenses were covered. So I lived there like sort of free. I mean, of course, it was my work, like to make sure everything works. If something breaks, something needs to be fixed in a house that I owned. But that was the cushion that I didn't have to worry at least about that part. And then I felt, well, definitely I'll make enough to to feed myself and to have maybe a little extra because beginnings might be rough. So I had some idea how to make it work, and I was willing to take a chance because I figured, if it doesn't work out, I can always go back to 9 to 5. I can always go back and find another job. So, and having that mentality, saying like nothing is final, like it's not a final decision. So there is a flexibility. You can even do something, of course, while having a job, and then you can open a business and run it remotely or evenings or weekends. So maybe for someone that gradual transition is better in a way because they feel more secure money wise, and then they can sort of like grow into that. But it depends on the industry, it depends on the involvement, if they can hire someone to fill in, or if their 9 to 5 job is flexible, maybe they don't make that much, but they have some time flexibility where they can at least make some phone calls. Maybe they can run and like say, if I'm working on a project to flip a house or house renovations, and if it's like my lunch break, then I can go there back and make payments or just see how things are going. So it all depends, I guess, on the industry, on the plan, what they want to do. But yes, definitely having that sort of sober understanding how I'm going to make it work and say, okay, so if I'm quitting my job, if I'm not quitting my job, so then this is what I need to do. This is the flexibility. This is the plan. Maybe I need to hire someone. And there's so many people who can be hired part-time. It could be college students. It could be people overseas. My current assistant, she works from Philippines. So that makes it more affordable for me. Just having that, maybe mindset, that open mindset, and then be able to course correct. If something goes wrong, then not be upset about it, but be prepared for it, almost plan for it, that it's a given that something might not work out, especially in the beginning when you, first of all, do not know if it's going to be for you, stay full time. And second of all, you are sort of building this and you do not know the process yet. You're learning it. So just having that positive mindset and thinking, you know what, things will be okay. It will all work out at the end. I'm going to do my best, say, set up a time, maybe 6 months, maybe 1 year, whatever it is, maybe longer. I'm going to put all my efforts to make it work. And then if it works out, great. If it doesn't, then 9 to 5 is always there. So there are options that you can go back to.
Right. And whether it's you, me, and so many other entrepreneurs that have found success in their industries, we all had a dream, right? And we didn't lose sight of that dream. Now, it may have taken us many paths to get to that dream, because let's look at your path. You had the dream of having, freedom, flexibility, yes, earning money, but it wasn't your primary goal. Your primary goal was to spend more time with your daughter. And it didn't start off that way. Your primary goal in the beginning was to support your mom and help support your family. but you still had that dream. For anyone that's listening, I think definitely, you have to look at what is your dream ultimately? What is it that you ultimately want in your life? And entrepreneurship is there, but you have to think, there's many paths to get you to that dream, but you have to find the right path for you. And you mentioned, what are you passionate about? What interests you? Because if you didn't enjoy real estate, could you really pull it off?
It could have been very frustrating because sometimes people are late, they may not show up,
Mm-hmm.
even if you reconfirm and say say half an hour before they're telling you that they're coming and then they're not coming. So I'm not saying that it happens every single time. No, it's rather an exception, but you have to plan for it. It's almost a given. Yeah, just having that why and that mindset that even if things go wrong, it's still okay. It's still worth it. What is the price of freedom? So for me, freedom is probably the most priceless thing that I value the most. And some people may not value it as much. And this is probably, again, the hustling part comes from that. So because I value my freedom so much that I will be hustling and making things happen because I am terrified of going to nine to five schedule. Like I don't want to. So I'll do whatever it takes so that I don't have to become a 9 to 5 person because it's never even 9 to 5 anymore. It's in my case it's always was longer, plus commute, and then by the time you leave the house in the morning and you came back from work, you don't have much energy to do things anyways. So it really becomes like maybe 6 to 7, or whatever that story could be, and with family obligations and all of it. So yeah, I guess for me probably ability to support a family and freedom were my big why, because I grew up with very little. I grew up in a 1 bedroom apartment. I had a brother, and I'm just used not to have that much, or being okay with not having that huge mansion or luxury car and all of that, probably because I come from very humble background. But I came across some people whose dream is like, I want to have that Porsche, or I want to have that house with a pool. And that's okay because everyone's drive is different. And that drive just has to be strong enough for us to make it hustle and make it happen. That the business and enjoying it. I feel like if we're not enjoying what we do, again, it's just very hard. It's like being married to someone you don't like, right? So how long can you take it, right? So you can take it maybe for a couple of years, and then you're just like, no, I can't. I'm out.
And you don't want to create that same feeling you have in your 9 to 5 anyway, when you're thinking about going on your own. But the one thing I want to point out, your vision wasn't like, Lamborghinis and mansions, but you created that wealth for your family. And so to be able to do that, people, they think, oh, there's one way to achieve something. And you actually are an example that there's multiple ways. Real estate was one way, but it didn't start off with real estate. But for you to think as, so far as, yeah, I could live comfortably in a single family home, but why not have a multifamily and have my mortgage paid? So you have some people that are probably, that are probably listening, thinking, I've always thought about real estate too. And, I've always thought about investing, and I've always thought about how do I create generational wealth in that respect too. And then you have talked about the fact that you've done flips, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So you've done a lot, over the course of your entrepreneurial journey. But I want to spend some time talking about real estate for anyone who, has that dream of being a real estate investor or just learning the basics of real estate. What would what nuggets can you share with them about how to get started, the mindset that they have to come into it with, and how to make it work for them so that they can flip a property or they can get a multifamily?
Yes. So these are actually exactly two most common ways. So with flipping is definitely risky because you expect profit in the short term. And sometimes it may not happen because things can be outside of your control, even if you pick the right property and you got the renovation budget with your contractor, but maybe something was discovered along the way that had to be fixed and you were not aware of. Especially if you buy in foreclosure, you cannot fully test it, the heating system or plumbing, or things do come up last minute. And then even if you didn't plan on that expense, you have to do it. Once I worked with an investor and we almost sold the property. And the day of the closing, it was a heavy rain. And as they walked in, the buyer came in, the water was pouring into this one bedroom unit. And you would think like how things can go wrong with a one bedroom condo. Like there was just nothing even to do, like patch up, paint it, I think they did the cabinet, light fixtures. And then it was just like we thought it was a flood coming from upstairs, but no, it was actually such a heavy rain that it was soaking through the building, the brick. I guess it was pointing the brick eventually that needed to be done. And then the buyer, of course, freaked out. And shortly after, there was a huge assessment of $30,000. That was actually the profit that this investor was planning for. So it ended up eating his profit. But at the end of the day, this is an example of a flip going wrong and we have to be prepared for that. So if it doesn't happen, then what do? You dust off and you start over again, because not every flip will be successful. Some will be more successful, some will be less. And having that expectation that you'll do the best you can. But if things come up outside of your control and you may not make money, or you may even lose a little money, of course, planning on it and do your research, your due diligence ahead of time. But again, even if you've done it all and things came up last minute that were completely outside of your control, mentally, it's important to just say, okay, you know what, next time I'm going to do better, and I will learn from that. And another way is, of course, multifamily, purchasing a multifamily, which is a long term, which worked out well for me because you purchase something and you don't have expectation of immediate profit in the next 3 to 6 months. You understand that you're going to hold on it for a couple of years, and eventually the mortgage will be paid off. Rents are going high, as you know, in a tri-state area here. They went up significantly, I would say, in the past 20 years. I'm here in this country for 20 years, and I think they probably almost tripled. It's crazy. Many people cannot afford it. Many people get frustrated, but it's supply demand. And one thing about living in our area here, metropolitan area, the demand for real estate is very high. So in a way, it's sort of hard to go wrong. Like even when I was purchasing the properties in the areas which many people would just say, oh my God, it's like too risky. I still knew that if I buy it at the right price, and even if I'm dealing with people who sometimes are a little bit borderline with income and all of that, so it's sort of expected, and this is why I'm buying it lower than if I were to buy it in a more established area. But as long as the math works and there are extra funds to put aside for any unexpected repairs, and once say the mortgage paid off with this say 5 to 10% increase, depending on if the tenant is moving out, then of course you can jump to higher rate right away. They don't usually like when you do increases all of a sudden, but if you do gradual increase, they sort of expect it. Say if you do 5% increase every year, it's better for them psychologically, and it's better for us as landlords to do it, as opposed to like, oh, well, you've been here for 10 years, now I'm going to raise it by $500. Even though it's reasonable, psychologically, it just doesn't sit well with them and they get very upset. So that would be my probably advices when it comes to raising it, being consistent, keeping up the property. Don't let it being run down. You don't have to do extensive repairs, just like fresh coat of paint, just, making sure that it looks taken care of, so that if one day when you need to put it in the market and sell, you can get the best possible value for it. And of course, having that income up to date, because sometimes you look at the properties and the real estate agents will tell you, well, but it's below market. Well, then you have to set time aside. Okay, if it's below market, so what do I do? Do I kick them out? Do I raise it, which they will be upset? Do I do gradual raise? So all different strategies that you need to take care of. But then when you're on the other side and you're selling, so of course, if you're charging the market rate and the property looks taken care of and everything is addressed more or less, it's just much easier to sell it for good market rate and make money.
Now, when you made your purchases, did you use your own money, or did you use loans? Did you use other people's money? What would be the best way for someone to actually get into investing?
Actually, a lot of properties could be purchased with 3.5% or 5% down. There are conventional loans available. Of course, it goes to debt to income ratio. Currently, I work also with Brighton Bank, so we do mortgages too. So I help investors or first-time home buyers with mortgages. We just joined that program 2 months ago, and it works perfect because I have an ability to explain to them this is what they need to have, but of course they need to have certain income. So if someone is coming with low income, 3.5% down payment may not do it for them, just because that to income ratio usually probably the highest I've seen is 57%. The bank will let you go, but this would be more like mortgage brokers or smaller banks. Many large banks, like say Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they are very conservative. So they will actually be like at 37% debt to income ratio, 43%. And it may not happen. And it just because someone said no to you, like maybe Wells Fargo is denying you, there will be other banks who will approve it. So it's just a matter of having that network and having that open mindset that it doesn't have to be just one lender. It happened to me personally. So once one bank will deny it, they have like just more conservative guidelines, even though I have A plus credit and everything, but so many things go into that. Or they just have to put more money down if the income is not there to justify it. By the way, when you purchase multifamily property, the income that's coming in from that property is that income. So there are lenders who will let you use it solely based on that investment income coming from the property as opposed to your personal income. And that probably should be your goal because you are doing it as an investment. It's not your own property for you to live in. So there are definitely programs like that too. Of course, financing is expensive, but you have to start somewhere. So when I purchased my own property, first one, I put 3.5% down actually. I built in the closing costs into the price of a house. So it's called seller's concession, and they allowed me to do it. And I was lucky because my 9 to 5 boss, or maybe because it wasn't exactly 9 to 5, it was longer, but he was nice enough to lend me the money for this 3.5% for like a couple of months. So I think it was 6 months, and that was our agreement that I have to pay back in 6 months. So pretty much you can say that I bought it with $0 when I bought my first one. And then of course, you save up and then you move to the next one and the next one. But of course, many people would tell me like, oh, you're crazy. You took all this risk. But as we say in my country, those who don't risk do not drink champagne. And that's part of the...
I like that. I like that.
It's part of the process. So yes, sometimes it can seem like a lot on your plate. And I feel like, again, going back to entrepreneurship, we in general, we're willing to take risks more so than other people.
You have to be.
And sometimes we lose and we have to be okay with that. Well, like, it happened to me too. Like I've made bad decision. It was a bad call. And you just learn from it and you say, next time I'm going to do better. And it's part of the process. Making mistakes is part of the process because no one is perfect. People fell, they got up and they kept going. It just because something didn't work out simply means that you learned something and you have to keep going, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Now, Julia, I know people are wondering, like, if they're thinking about getting into real estate, like they don't have to live in New York to reach out to you, right? If they want to be a real estate agent, if they are interested in investing, you can actually connect them to a global network. They just got to reach out to you and then you can connect them, right?
Yes, absolutely. That's part of the benefit of being with Keller Williams because we do have, it's so-called KWLS. It's a network of properties that I have access to. And of course, I have also agents in my network that in different areas, trusted partners who can help home sellers or home buyers and or investors, and they can give them local valuable insight. For me, I think even though, of course, real estate is local, but it's also global. Wherever I go, I always make a point to stop in the real estate office whenever I'm traveling, whether it's Florida, Fort Lauderdale, or Tampa, whether it's Las Vegas, Nevada, or I've just been to Mallorca, Spain, so I stopped by in a local real estate office there. I had a chance to practice my Spanish, which I understood I still have a long way to go, but we understood each other. It's actually going very well and people are investing there. Interesting part that the interest rate here is 7%. In Europe right now, it's 3.3, 3 point, maybe 4 or 5, like half of what we have, more or less. But again, there are so many countries where interest rates is much, much higher, as far as even like 100%, 122, I think was in Zimbabwe. That I Googled, I was just interested
Oh
in
my
it.
God.
Yeah, which is crazy, but again, it's definitely requires more creativity, but it makes you realize that we have nothing to complain. And yes, some people may not be able to afford tri-state area or metropolitan area, I should say, because New York State is huge. And if we go to Buffalo, the prices there will be a lot more affordable. But it can be also New Jersey. A good friend of mine, she started in Atlantic City. She did very well. She bought two apartments, one for her to live in, then another one that she does Airbnb. That's yet another stream of income. Vacation properties, and maybe something that people will be interested in buying something on the beach, or just maybe a couple of blocks away from the beach that they could use themselves. Of course, it's a headache. Sometimes we laugh about reviews, like someone will leave me a review and to her review, and we're like, we need to have a wine Zoom session, and we're like, can you believe it? What they wrote? These people are just so ungrateful. And then we just laugh and we just, drink our wine and we'll move forward because we know that, you can't please all people. And if someone is not happy, we always tell them, look, so you're renting this at 100, maybe $150 a night, but there's Caesars or other hotels here that charge $400 a night, and you will be happier there. So it's all up to, we have to bring this perspective to other people. And staying away from negativity. I feel like in the beginning, when you start a business, a lot of our friends and relatives, they can be skeptical and they may have your best interest in mind, some of them, and they just want to protect you. Some of them might be jealous that you actually dared to leave your job and start a new business. And some wish you a lot of success, some wish you failure, but none of it matters. What matters is like your big why, your drive, and ability to keep going no matter what negative people may tell you, or those who will criticize you. Usually people who criticize those who never accomplish anything themselves, those who never had a business. People who write the most negative reviews online, they never had their own coffee shop or restaurant or anything. And maybe they are frustrated with their marriage or job or midlife crisis. It can be anything. They have nothing to do with you. Just they happen to be interacting with you in your business at that time, and something triggered it, and that created that burst of negativity. We should be sort of okay with that, not like letting them, still putting people in place if they cross the line, but also understanding that not everything that people say is true, whether it's positive or negative.
Absolutely. So as we close, I want people to know that you can have the dream and there's more than one way to get there. So that way could be real estate. That way can be brick and mortar, like a coffee shop. It could be online coaching, which is what I help people do, or I help people start coaching businesses. It could be another type of online business, but tap into what your dream really, really is. And the other takeaway from this episode, I think people need to get is start somewhere. Because if you're waiting for this perfect starting point, and I think you heard Julia mention multiple times, like it took several different, business opportunities for her to figure out what was going to work for her. And her why evolved, but she was in tune with what she needed. It wasn't just about, oh, I need to make more money or I need a new car. It was deeper than that. And so you definitely have to go deep when it comes to your why. And you need to surround yourself with the right people, and you need to know your math. Like, what is it going to really, truly take for you to be able to quit your 9 to 5 and do it comfortably and not fall flat on your face? And think about your current circumstances and where you are so that you can, tap into the opportunity that's going to be right for you. And regardless of what opportunity you choose, you have to have determination. You have to, take action. You can't be someone sitting around procrastinating. If you're going to be in the world of entrepreneurship, you have to be an action taker. Otherwise you'll just be sitting in the same place year after year, talking about what you're going to do instead of doing what you want to do. With that being said, I want you to share with people how they can reach out to you, both on social media, the Keller Williams office, maybe. You don't need to share your phone number publicly, but how can they reach out to you if they want to learn more about investing? Maybe they're thinking about, should I invest in New York? Or, where can you help me invest? Where can they reach out to you?
Right. Actually, with realtors, we're people who are the easiest to find. Just when you Google someone, so everything comes up. But yes, I am on LinkedIn under Julia Kushnir. You'll see my picture on the profile. I'm on Facebook, Julia Kushnir Realtor. I'm also on Instagram, although my Instagram is more like, I guess, personal. Probably LinkedIn and Facebook would be best. My email address is J for Julia, S for Sam, and then my last name, KUSHNIR@gmail. JSKushnir@gmail. So you can use any of these venues to reach me, message me, and I'm happy to help you in any way I can.
Awesome. Awesome. So I just want to thank you, Julia, for spending, this time with my audience and sharing, some very valuable insight about entrepreneurship, about building wealth, through real estate and tons of other nuggets that you shared here today. I really appreciate you and thank you for joining me on the Boss Experience podcast. Tell me one final thing, just one thing you want people to take away from today's episode as we close.
Right. Yes. So I feel we've been talking about being prepared and knowing math and numbers. And sometimes, if someone is coming from a background that has nothing to do maybe with budgeting, especially if they are artists, it might be hard. So I feel having a coach by your side, someone who will help you create that business plan is very, very important. And I know, Michelle, you're doing such a fabulous job helping people do so. And because that will just set you for success instead of failure, and that will lead to less unmet expectations. So you cannot maybe be prepared for everything in life. But if you, for the most part, are realistic with your goals, with your plan, with your finances and budgeting, you are a lot less likely to quit your business and go 9 to 5 if you're prepared. So I feel it's very, very important. And of course, real estate is its own area. So where we provide also coaching and mentorship, if someone wants to start there, I can help because Michelle has broader expertise in many other businesses. So mine is more local, but the idea is the same. So just get prepared, figure out what you need, talk to people, talk to entrepreneurs instead of those maybe who are 9 to 5. They may have your best interest in mind, again, as your friends and family, but talk to people who learn from people who succeed, not from those who failed, or not from those who are negative and they're just trying to talk you out of starting your dream. Because if you never start, you'll never achieve. So the longer you wait, like Michelle said, the less likely you're ever going to start. So because there's never the right time. It's like having kids, when is the right time to have kids? Never, Same thing about business. So you have to start. The sooner, the better.
Awesome. Awesome. So thank you so much, Julia. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in to this episode of the Boss Experience podcast. I can't wait for you to join me for a future episode. Take care and be well. Thank you for tuning in to the Boss Experience podcast. Don't forget to leave a review for this episode and tune in next time.